do you really want this? And that's what I wrote on my computer. Do you want this? Do you want this? And so when it's summertime DC and everyone is brunching and I'm just sitting here, like on Instagram, just, looking like a zombie with my hair on top of my head, that I said, do you really want this? And so I would say that sometimes that tough love is necessary to really just motivate you. I will never forget that you asked me, do you really want this?
Well, hey, everybody, welcome back to Hanging Out with Successful Bar Exam Takers. And man, do we have a story and just an amazing the feels are all good today because we got Vanessa Harden here. Hi, Vanessa. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jackson. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Well, so tell everybody what your good news is.
So I found out, surprisingly, by the way, on October the 24th, that I passed the UBE on my first try.
Yeah. And as cool as that is, folks, the story you're about to hear is going to make all of that so much cooler. You can't even begin to believe it because your story goes back to about 2014 or 2015, doesn't it?
Yes, I graduated law school in May of 2014, and thus the journey to licensure began.
Yeah. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what happened after you graduated law school and the early parts of that journey?
So I graduated in May of 2014, and as all graduates across the country, started that 2-month journey of poverty and stress and studying full time. And the first time I took the Florida bar, I'll be honest, I bombed it. I totally bombed it. And I think that when I got my score report, I was just shell shocked. And I made the mistake that a lot of people do is I went right back with that same big box corporation. Still wasn't working. I'm blessed to have amazing parents. So I didn't have that financial pressure. And I got up there to I think that I maybe improved 15 points. So, I mean, on the MBE, so very nominally. And so leaving Tampa and getting that result in April, I think I was just emotionally shattered. And I felt like licensure was something that was never going to happen, but I'd invested so much in this degree that I kind of had to do it, right? Like I couldn't walk away from it. So I got into a career in child welfare, and I took some time off, and then I re-upped again in 2016 with celebration. And I will say that was the closest I ever came to passing the Florida bar. I missed it by about 6 points on that last time. But I would say that was in no way attributed to the program. It was me. I was not mentally ready for that test. It had already beaten me, and it's so hard to defeat an enemy that you feel like they already have an advantage on you. So I did not really believe that I could do it. And so that last attempt, I listened to the things that you said, but they didn't resonate with me because I felt like I was never going to be a bar passer at that time. And hindsight brings that to me. And so I bought in, but I didn't really buy in. I didn't do the photo reading, and there was a lot that I just didn't do. And I think we had some very grumpy calls.
Yeah, we had a couple. You're not going to believe this, folks, but because what you see here, this happy, smiling, cheerful Vanessa was not always this way. And back then in 2016, I went back and looked at some of our notes before our call today, and I was struck by how discouraged you were, and how I think you're right. I think the test had beaten you before you ever walked in the door. And as we sort of started unpacking the results from that attempt at Florida, kind of talk people through what your thought process was. You've now taken the bar exam 3 times. You were getting close, but not over the top. So at that point, and you've got a good job, right? You've got other things going on in your life. So what's your thought process then? Keep at it, stop, do something different? What were you thinking about?
I remember that I credit my faith a lot. And I remember always loving DC. Like I always loved this area. And my parents actually relocated up here. And I just felt like something on my heart to be like, apply for a job, even outside the legal perspective. I applied for a job, moved up here. And in January of 2019, I felt ready. I felt like, Vanessa, you got this. Like, you were smart enough to get through law school and you got this. And so I went back to, I remember I said, I wonder if Jackson remembers me. I was like, I wonder. And
Yeah,
so I
I
kind of did
remember.
the coward thing, and I just signed up for it. And I remember that first email that was like, welcome back. And I told myself, I was like, Vanessa, you know, you're gonna buy in. But I think that it was just Vanessa getting my confidence back, and realizing that this was a new beast, and I felt like I could conquer it. And I think and we had some moments even this time,
Mhm.
but I think that was what was different for me, that I was willing to buy in.
Yeah, I want to talk about that buy-in, because what happened, when you came back after a layoff of a little while,
Mm-hmm.
and you said, well, I'm in DC, and I said, well, absolutely, you should be taking the uniform bar exam,
Mm-hmm.
because our strategy is, at some point, if you're bumping your head against the wall in a state like Florida or California or Texas, and you can take the UBE, it gives you so
Mm-hmm.
much more flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, it's just a more straightforward exam.
Yeah.
And you agreed to that. And then we talked about photo reading.
Mm-hmm.
And you had said, well, I'm going to buy in, I'm going to use the personal mentoring, personal coaching, and photo reading. I want to talk for a minute about what you think photo reading is and what it did for you, because I think it was part of your sort of mental process of, I'm just going to go all in. Is that
Mm-hmm.
accurate to say?
That's accurate. I remember the first time I sat down and photo read, I got so much anxiety, because when you're working full time, your study hours are so precious. And I remember even telling you, what did I just do? Well, like, what was that? But when it clicked for me was when I started writing essays, and the rules flowed out. And when I would do MBE questions, the wrong answers would like slap me in the face. And I would be able to get it down to two answers and just make that quick decision. And I realized that because I think all bar studiers were very neurotic. And so we would start, our little list. And I realized when I would second guess myself and think too hard, I would always get that question wrong. And with essays, the knowledge really came out of nowhere. And you got to the point where those outlines, like, you just knew where the answers were. And so I think that it's a faith move, because it's very uncomfortable. It's something that you've never done before, but it worked. I look at my essay scores. It worked. Like, it just worked.
Yeah.
I don't know how it worked. It just worked. It was worth it. Like, that money, I don't even think about it right now. It was an investment in my future, and it worked.
Yeah, and I think, and I could see the difference as you were starting to write. What Vanessa is describing is this process of intuition, that as you photo read, and you're reading at 25,000 words a minute, so you're reading this outline many, many times, and then you're activating it through the lectures and practice questions. But as you're writing your answers, you're making an argument, and suddenly the law is there. You're just typing it. And we talked about kind of keeping your fingers on the keyboard and just keeping moving, and trusting it would be there. And what we began to see as you're submitting work, and we're talking about it, is these essays are getting longer, they're getting more substantively filled, and they're accurate. And I remember, going through some of them and saying, this is spot on. You're doing what you need to do. What did that feel like to you after all the other times when you've been through the exam? What was the sense that you were getting?
I felt confident. I felt confident, and I will say this, that I had a career that kept me close enough to the courtroom that I felt comfortable, and that I didn't feel too far out of my field. But I'll be honest, and I think that you said this in one of the lectures. I'm not sure which one it is. I started seeing lawyers, and I was like, these people are not smarter than me. Like, they are not smarter than me. They were able to conquer this beast as a bar exam. And I think that it really, I kind of got my swagger back a little bit, for lack of professional terms. And I remember you say all the time, especially in that last 30 days, we know how to get you there. We don't need your knowledge. We don't need your tidbits. And I really, for the entire process, I kind of was in a silo. I didn't talk to other bar takers. I didn't talk to my friends who had passed Florida. I really was just in a balloon of, if Jackson didn't say it, I ain't doing it, because this has worked. And so I think with photo reading, especially towards the end, those essays just kind of flowed. And then to get in the room, keeping your hands on the keys and just typing, you're like going from I forgot, 3 essays in Florida and 6
Hmm.
in the UBE. You walk out and you feel like, what did I just do to my brain? What did I
Yeah.
just do? But the process worked. I would say, for anyone who is on the fence about the writing, no, it is a magic formula. It works. I looked at my score on the UB on the first day. I knocked it out the park on the first day and walked away feeling like, I don't know what just happened, but it worked. Photo reading worked because you don't have to think. The information just flowed. And there was one question that I think I totally glossed over, and that was my longest essay. And I think that the information is just there. You have to just trust the process, and it will come back to your remembrance in the exam room.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And of course, you had to take the performance test, which was not a part of
Mm-hmm.
the Florida exam. So that was something completely different to you.
Mm-hmm.
What did
Mm-hmm.
that feel like to do the performance tests?
It felt really good. I think that the way they structured is that you do it, that's the first thing that you do. And it was very, very common sense. And I remember seeing the people just frantically typing. And I kind of wasn't. I made my headings. So once I made my headings, I was just ready just to type and make arguments. And so it was really interesting because you would see the people just frantically in their thing, and I had my headphones on, and I was actually humming a Christian song in my head and just typing. And I think it really kind of gave me a confidence boost, because you kind of, it felt like this is real life work. And I remember you saying in the lecture that a lot of times that kind of boosts people over the passing point. And I did not let the test freak me out. I think that was the biggest thing, that you teach us to be calm. I think like you put us through like military training, and then we get to the test, we just do it instinctively. And I
Yeah.
think that I felt good walking away from the first day.
Yeah, that first day is really a long day. And I think
Mm-hmm.
if you get that good momentum going with the performance tests in the morning, it really carries over. It's sort of like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, the afternoon I can really do this. I know that there are
Mm-hmm.
people that feel really beat up by the performance tests, and then they're down, and they come into that, 6 essays in the afternoon on
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday, and they're just like, oh man, I got nothing in my tank.
Mm-hmm.
So that definitely makes a difference. And then you get to day 2 with the multi-state bar exam,
Mm-hmm.
and the process you were describing, where answers just sort of jump out at you, is what we call selective intuition, which
Mm-hmm.
is, again, using your photo reading, using the mind maps and the non-conscious understanding, and you start to see the answers, right?
You
I mean,
do.
you weren't
Mm-hmm.
sitting there saying, well, I wonder if A is better than B or
Mm-mm.
C, right? That
Mm-mm.
was not the
Mm-mm.
process.
Mm-mm. Not at all. And I think that your voice was in my head, especially on the second day, about like if you're thinking like that question has you beat. And so I did a lot of just, nope, this answer is right. And just the lectures, I think, and you also given a suggestion about listening to lectures faster. And again, that was something that you had told me back in Florida. Didn't buy into it, but I live in DC. Anyone who's been up here, traffic is a monstrosity. So I said, you know what? How can I make these hours better? I would literally be in the car listening to lectures at faster, and it doesn't feel like you're taking in information, but it works. Like, I think it's just some witchcraft, like Jackson. It just works. And so when I was on the test, answers really did jump out. And I didn't finish extremely early. I probably finished within the 30-minute time frame in the morning and the night. But the scores bear that out. They were consistent with the practice test, and I did not feel defeated by any question. There were some questions that the wording was tricky, but they were very similar to the questions that we had in practice.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
You were working full time while you were studying,
Mm-hmm.
and you were writing, submitting work to me. You were in the course where you did 15 conference calls with me, and you
Mm-hmm.
were very diligent about getting those done. I mean, from the time you enrolled, you went, and we talked pretty much every week, I think.
Have the conferences go well, that kept motivating me to be like, yep, I want Jackson to be smiling and not looking like, what is this essay you just sent me? And that definitely was a motivating factor. And I was in like the 150s on the written portion. And so I say anyone listen to Jackson, because I thought the MBE was going to get me over, but that written portion really got me that licensure.
How did you manage to keep all those balls in the air? I mean, how did study and work and family and other things going on? How did you arrange your schedule?
I'll be very frank. I had no dating life. I had no social life.
Okay,
um,
folks, she's available now. Okay.
like I didn't. I was very blessed in my family, in the fact that they had seen so many bar failures in the past, that they respected it. And I took over. I took over my parents' living room, and they just got it back the day after the bar. But I will say that setting a set schedule, and with my job, I was lucky to have the flexibility of, I would get up at 6, and that would be my quiet time. I would stop working, if at all possible, by 4:30, and those would be my evening hours. And weekends were the bar. I would get up, I would go running for an hour, get a cup of coffee, and then you're just set in the corner. Um, in the beginning, because I started studying in January, in the beginning, it was easier to kind of find some social time. By May, no one wanted to be around me anyway. But that quiet time was really, I would give myself maybe a workout, but set a schedule and stick to it. So I'm not a morning person, so I would work, study maybe from like 4:30 to maybe 10. I realized that studying after 10 is kind of productive because I'm exhausted. So I would give myself 3.5 hours a day, but if at all possible, start early, so that by the time I got to the summer, I was getting towards a review period, which I think really made a big difference. That I spent the summer in review, and I wasn't submitting essays in 2 weeks before the bar. So if at all
Yeah, I thought
possible,
that made
start
a
early.
difference. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that made a big difference too.
Hmm.
And I think, the other part of this was because you were consistent, as you were seeing growth and development, it was building this confidence
Yeah.
early on,
Yeah.
not at the very end. I mean, you were
Hmm.
confident for a while going into the exam,
Hmm.
and we, fully expected you to pass. And
Hmm.
I think that when the light goes on and you go, wow, this is working. I remember a couple times you're
Hmm.
like, wow, photo reading thing must be really
Yeah.
working. I can
Yeah.
tell the difference. I think that at that point it became pretty important for you to just start building on those gains
Hmm.
and sort of locking them in.
Hmm.
So you go to the exam, you go through these couple of days,
Hmm.
and DC is a very different place to take the exam than Tampa, Florida, isn't it?
It is. It is. It is.
I tease the DC examiners; they're a little quirky.
They are.
Um, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, somebody
Yeah.
said to me the other day, said, well, you don't think I should take the DC exam? I said, oh, no, I think I love it. I said, but,
Hmm.
as compared to sort of the rigidity in Florida, right,
Hmm.
where it's all,
Hmm.
yeah, you don't belong here.
Exactly. Exactly. It's a weeder outer process.
Yeah. DC is
Hmm.
a much more, I don't really know what the right word is. It's just different experience, but would
Hmm.
it be one that you would recommend to people to take the exam up there?
Yes, the UB. I think that Florida, they do not want any more. In my personal opinion, they do not want any more attorneys. And the test is designed, I believe, to induce the most anxiety, and designed to trip you up. The UBE is very, very straightforward. The MBE is the same beast. It's the same ugly beast that it always is. But the essays they were extremely straightforward.
Yeah.
There was no getting trapped on an exception. They were very straight. It was very straightforward. So I would say, for anyone who has struggled with the state bar, the UBE could easily be your saving grace. I think that it was one of the better decisions I made in my life, to
Yeah.
switch to UB jurisdiction. It's very quirky. We did not get a lunch break the first day. So it was just enough time to run and get a bag of chips from from Starbucks. But again, you were in my head about, that's how it is in real life, that I work with enough attorneys that your hearings are delayed, you don't have enough time to eat. And so I think it was just a part of walking into your profession. I felt like you're going to walk out of here with your license. And there were days that I doubted that, but that's what I feel like. I'm going to walk out of here with my license. I'm going to leave it all on the field. And I was prepared very well.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the other quirky things about DC is that we never know when they're going to release their results.
Yeah.
Last summer, they were the last jurisdiction to release.
Mm-hmm.
And so this week, because we're just finding this out, New York releases their results on October 23rd. And then lo and behold, on the 24th, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you find out that DC was releasing? Did you get an email or what happened?
So this is a story that will live in infamy. I was at work and I was on the phone with my sister and I see this email pop up. And I remember, this is crazy. I remember reading the first line that says, "We're pleased to inform." And I saw successful, and then I saw the number. And I kid you not, Jackson, my first thought was that number's higher than the passing number. Like, that was my first thought. And I sent the email to my sister. I said, "Read this. I'm going to get up and walk away from my desk. Just read it." And she starts screaming, and I'm literally having a meltdown. All my coworkers come over there. They're like, "Did somebody die? Like, are you okay?" And I was like, "I passed the bar." And my boss said, "Oh, we knew that was going to happen." But I would say that in that moment, the weight of the journey just really fell down on me. And I remember when I emailed you, I said, I don't know if this is real, but I think that it was a moment of just pure, like, okay, like, you did it. And so I'll never forget it. I printed out the email, and I had no idea. DC said mid to end of November. I booked a trip to Singapore to see my best friend, because I was like, that I don't know what this day is going to hold. And they posted, and then DC they post, I think, like, public results on the 30th. But it was the best surprise ever, but
That's
very
awesome.
Very shocking.
Yeah. Well, now, that we have a tradition here when we're interviewing people. And the tradition is that, the reason that my wife, Sarah, and I started the business a long time ago was to help people get their lives back.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the best tradition of Dave Ramsey and some others, we like to have the countdown yell here at the end. So what I want to do, if you're going to be a good sport, is in a minute, I'm going to count you down, and then I want you to yell, "I have my life back." I want you to just let her rip, because I know it's one of our favorites. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, ready? All right, okay, here we go. So we're going to count down. 3, 2, 1.
I got my life back.
Yay!
Yay!
What a great feeling, right? I mean,
it is.
And I think that, Vanessa, one of the great things about your story, and I know the reason that it's going to motivate so many other people, is that you're really honest about how discouraging it felt at different times, and then picking yourself back up. And, there were some moments when you and I talked when you were, I probably reduced you to tears a couple of times. Yeah. And not because I wanted to, but just because there's so much involved, and it's so loaded and so tough, and you wanted it so deeply. And it's frustrating, right? But then the moment happens, and it's the release of all that frustration. What would you say to somebody who's kind of struggling? They've taken the bar unsuccessfully before. They're just not sure what to do next or how to go. If you could talk back to them now, what would you say?
The first thing I would say is that your worth is not determined by you getting your license, and do not take this test until you are mentally ready to take it. Your journey is not going to look like your coworker's journey. It's not going to look like, your neighbor's journey. Don't feel bad about taking some time to emotionally heal from the trauma that is preparing and taking the test. Be kind on yourself, and come back to the process when you are ready to be fully committed, whether that is emotionally, financially, spiritually, whatever it is. But allow yourself time to grieve that you didn't get it the first time or the second time, but don't give up. I think that's the thing is that don't give up, and do not rely on your emotions. Find one person who can be honest with you, and who you can be honest with about the journey. I think that was what the difference to me. And take a licking and keep on ticking is what my grandma always
Yeah,
said.
yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
also know that for you, and you've mentioned it already, your faith is very central to
Hmm.
who you are and how you
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what that meant to you in this process? And because I think sometimes people think they have to set their faith aside when they're studying.
I think I love the Old Testament and the fact that we see some of the most unlikely figures used by God in some of the most exponential ways. I think about Joseph. I think about Moses. I think about David. David's story always struck out to me because he wasn't even invited to the party. David's father was like, "Oh, you mean my son? Like he's going to be the king? Like, no, you
He
don't
went
want
to
him.
that law
He
school?
went to
No.
that law school exactly like him. Like
Yeah,
he barely made it. He
yeah,
didn't make it on moot court,
yeah.
but he was anointed in secrecy. And even when it was whispered in his ear that you're going to be the king, he didn't walk into the palace. He walked into battles, and that's really what stuck out to me. And there's something. It's somewhere. I think it's in the email that you send the Sunday before the test.
Mhm.
And I will never forget those words that I don't pray for you to pass the bar because I know that God's plans for you are bigger.
Yeah.
And that's really what resonated with me is that, Vanessa, I know the plans that I have for you. And if those plans include licensure, awesome. If those plans don't include licensure, I love you anyway. And I think that my faith is really what got me through. That I realized that either way, no matter what happened, I was still loved by God. I was still chosen by God. And in that moment, and I'll share this, that the wait for results is so long. So for August and September, I didn't think about it. I didn't think about it. But late mid October, I started thinking about it. And I remember Monday, I told the Lord, I said, Lord, I don't want to do this again. Like, I don't want to do this again. And I said, God, what would life look like if I just was a JD for the rest of my life? Like, what would life look like? And I even went so far as to saying, God, help me to prepare for that. And when I saw the results, I felt like, how like when Sarah said, God, like me pregnant, she laughed at God. I felt
Yeah,
God laughed at me. And he was like,
yeah,
but little did you know that that was not going to be
yeah.
your life. And so I say that cling to your faith, and know that God is bigger than licensure. He really is. And because when you get the results, the devil comes with, well, now you got to find a job.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well, yeah, there's that part of it too. You
yeah.
have such wisdom, Vanessa,
Mhm.
and I love that. I love what you just shared. It's I'm not going to church on Sunday. I'm just going to take
Mhm.
that in place. But one of the things, and talking about what happens post exam
Mhm.
results, is that in the UBE, if you pass in DC, the passing score required minimum is 266, and
Mhm.
you did better than that.
Mhm.
And so now you actually have the ability to waive into or be licensed in
Mhm.
a lot of states, including New
Mhm.
York, New
Yeah.
Jersey, Illinois. Maybe you sat down and
Mhm.
figured out how many states you're actually eligible for yet?
I'm Maryland. I think Maryland is the next step. I work in child welfare. I have a soft spot for the kids, and so I'm over here like, in what state can I save all the babies? And so
Yeah,
I think Maryland is that next one, and
yeah.
yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
you've got this opportunity to be multi-jurisdictionally licensed. So we
Mhm.
go from not being licensed anywhere and just being stuck in Florida
Mhm.
to now
Mhm.
you could be in, I don't know, probably 15, 20
Mhm.
states if you wanted.
Mhm.
What a huge set of choices. And now
Yes.
your life unfolds. And now
Mhm.
the next part of your journey unfolds. And I know
Mhm.
it's going to be spectacular just because of who you are. And I know that your commitment to making the world a better place
Mhm.
is a big part of this.
Yeah.
We are very excited at Celebration Bar Review when we can help people like
Yeah.
you become members of the bar, because I
Mhm.
think our entire society is enriched by that.
Mhm.
And so I have to say, I cried a little bit when I got your email that you had passed.
I'm
It means a lot,
Mhm.
and I'm so thrilled for you, so
Mhm.
excited for what this journey means for you and for
Mhm.
your family. you do get your life back, and now you get the
Mm-hmm.
new challenges of,
Mm-hmm.
where do we go from here and what do we do?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And so, I'm deeply appreciative that you would share your story, because I know
Mm-hmm.
that coming on here and talking about what happens, sometimes people are like, I don't know, I want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I guarantee you, there will be
Mm-hmm.
many, many people who will
Mm-hmm.
watch this and go,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, that's me. I see
Mm-hmm.
myself there. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And,
It's cathartic. It's cathartic, and I would say for anyone, my inbox is open. Like if you just want someone to pray with you, or you just want someone to tell you, that take sit this one out and get yourself together. I'm there, because I think that this will make me a better attorney. I would never want to go through it again, but I think that this would make me a better attorney, because this was not handed to me. It wasn't.
no, you fought for this.
I
You
fought
fought
for
for this.
this.
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
be clear, folks. If you think that Vanessa just backed her way and stumbled into this, it didn't happen that way at all. This was a lot of work,
Yeah.
and I think it makes the victory that much sweeter.
It does, and I think that it makes you more appreciative, and I think it will make you a better advocate, because now I have the ability. Now I have a little gravitas behind my name, and that's not conceit. I think that humbles me in a way to advocate for the people in society that need a voice.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it has been a real honor for us to be part of your journey, and I look forward to you sharing with our students, as you indicated. We've got a private Facebook group, and one of the great parts is that our successful students stick around and help out.
Yes, you're not getting rid of us, Jackson.
No, I love that. I love that. It's kind of my happy place, and so I do want to just recommend any of you to reach out to Vanessa if you're wondering, because I think your story is so remarkable and wonderful, and I hope you'll stay in touch. I look forward to seeing the cool stuff that you do.
Yeah.
And again, just want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right. And to all of you who've been watching and listening, I hope you took Vanessa's words to heart. That is some of the best wisdom I have heard from anybody in a very long time. So really excited. And we'll see all of you soon in another episode, another interview. But for now, we're going to say bye-bye.
Goodbye.